Well, I want to spend a little time today talking about lessons from Europe, because this is a real life example of how to destroy your energy system, happening right before our eyes. You don't hear too much about it here in the United States. In 2000, Europe set up its European Climate Change Program, and the purpose there was to adopt measures to cut greenhouse gas emissions and to meet the Kyoto Protocol targets. And this was pretty much all across Europe. They had two main assumptions. First, that they would gain on world markets by being a first mover in green energy. And second, that hydrocarbons would become expensive, and therefore renewables, the gap would close and renewables would be able to compete. So what they did was do four things that I'll call the 4 steps to energy destruction. The first is they decided to subsidize and mandate renewables. Subsidies were in the form of a feed-in tariff, which says if you put up a wind or solar system, you feed that electricity into the grid, we will pay you a fixed amount, usually somewhere between 4 and 10 times the wholesale rate, for that electricity for up to 20 years. Great deal. Second, we're going to mandate renewables. We're going to force utilities to buy renewable electricity. Second thing they did is they said, well, we'll give renewable output grid priority. If you produce it from your wind or solar, the utility has to accept it, and they have to accept it as a first priority regardless of market demand. So if I'm a utility, that means I have to shut down my other systems when wind and solar are putting out their power. Third, in the case of Germany, they've decided to shut down their nuclear power after the Fukushima disaster. Some have wondered if Chancellor Angela Merkel thinks a tidal wave is going to hit Germany. And fourth, they've decided to ban hydraulic fracturing in France and Germany, ensuring that the price of natural gas will remain high for Europe. So these things have resulted in some remarkable things going on. We've had solar mania in Germany. Germany put a feed-in tariff into place, paying people 5 times the wholesale amount for electricity generated by solar. It's resulted in more than 1 million solar installations. But Germany's not exactly the Sun Belt. Central Germany's about equal with Calgary, Canada. It's way up there. So these systems get less than 10% output versus their rated output. And more than 1 million solar installations produces 1% of Germany's electricity, and about 5% of their electricity, about 1% of their energy. And it's cost over $400 billion in current payments and obligations. Jürgen Grossman, CEO of energy utility RWE, says, to produce solar power in Germany is as sensible as to grow pineapples in Alaska. We've had climate madness in Denmark in the form of wind turbines. What I've done in that map on the left is plotted all the wind turbine fields in Denmark, all those black dots. Denmark has erected more than 5,000 wind turbine towers, the highest density in the world, 1 for every 1,000 citizens, so that you now have a terrific view in every part of Denmark of a 300 to 500 foot tall wind turbine tower from your house, your beach, your forest, whatever. Now you'd think that 5,000 wind turbines would put out a lot of electricity, but you'd be wrong. In total, they put out about 1.2 gigawatts. They could all be replaced by a single conventional power plant that's as big as about one of those little black dots. And we have the case of the Drax Power Station in the United Kingdom, the biggest power station in Europe, formerly running on coal and producing 4 gigawatts of output. Well, because the European community does not count emissions burned from wood, they're converting this plant to burn wood chips, converting about half of it. And because they don't have enough wood in Europe, they're shipping this wood 3,000 miles from Alabama and Mississippi. This conversion cost 700 million pounds to convert. It's getting subsidies of £1 billion a year, and it's doubling the electricity cost for the British citizens. And then we have the case of Spain. The solar operators in Spain did the miraculous. Between November 2009 and January 2010, solar installations delivered 4,500 megawatt hours between midnight and 7 a.m. Environmental groups rejoiced and wanted to spread this technology all over the world. But when they looked a little closer, they found that the solar operators had hooked diesel generators up to their solar systems so they could feed power into the grid, not only at night, but also during the day, because the Spanish government was paying 10 times the wholesale price for solar electricity. Well, the energy system in Europe that's been created is one where everyone loses. Consumers lose, traditional power companies lose, industry loses, and even renewable energy companies are now losing.